Hello and welcome to the Argyle DataX Unite Data and Analytics Done Right. My name is Michael with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we'll turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, we'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsors, Boomi and DataVail. Our sponsors are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Thank you again to our sponsors, Boomi and DataVail. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. And for those of you who are active tweeters, please use the hashtag ArgyleDigital and follow us on Twitter at ArgyleExecForum. Also, be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I'd like to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. We've worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. Following each presentation, we've set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Thank you again for joining us. Now let's get started. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce Anurag Valetti, Vice President and Chief Data Officer with Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. We're excited to have Anurag for his opening keynote presentation titled Combining AI and Information Architecture for Greater Impact. Anurag, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Michael. And first of all, it's a pleasure talking about this specific topic. And I'm sure many of you are super passionate about data and AI. I just chose to use this title, There is no AI without IA, and we'll talk about what that actually means. Hopefully this will be informational. I'll leave you with some key actions to take, key things to consider as all of us embark on this journey that is super exciting and insightful and impactful at the same time. Just as a quick introduction, been in the data space for almost 10, 12 years now, and led many initiatives that ranged from traditional BI all the way to data lakes and lake houses, data meshes, data fabrics, and IoT and AI. So just had a great opportunity. And what has, just as a quick introduction, I love to call myself a proud geek, but at the same time focused on building great teams that deliver great impacts using technology. And without any further ado, I'll get into this thing around AI and what it actually means for all of us. And we talk a lot of these terms, and these terms mean different things to different people. Data-driven organizations, and this has been something that has been my specific passion, wherein we bring the process people and technologies together, especially in the space of data. And what it means to organizations to deliver such an impact. And, as people talk about data-driven organizations, people talk about being intelligent-driven organizations, make decisions based on data. All of those things lead to a few things, right? One is around how do companies focus on prioritizing data as an initiative, and especially in the pandemic area, both our customers, our internal employees have gotten far more adept at using technology, and technology has become, far more pervasive. So how do organizations create data to be the nucleus of their organization? And it is also important to lead with digital, so invest in people and technology in that sense to become data-driven. And for that vision to be successful cannot happen without embracing that change, without embracing that need for technology to change behaviors, change the culture of innovation as well. And for all of those things to happen, for decisions to be made, for business decisions to be made data-driven, the crux of it is going to be how to provide that unfettered access to accurate data. And that accurate data comes from the data that is available. And what I have also started to think about this is also, what people call as access to invisible data, right? So that is where a tremendous amount of value is there, but in a secure and a compliant way. And you probably have heard many of these terms, these metrics come through. Some of these things that attracted my attention is a McKinsey global report where data-driven organizations have been 23 times more likely to acquire new customers, to retain customers, almost more than 6 times, and 19 times more likely to be profitable. And some of these things are really, really important for any digital transformation to happen. And data is the key. And there is from that perspective, if we were to start to think about why we should be data driven, some of these metrics make sense. And if you were to look at it from a financial performance of taking those data driven companies and translate that financially, and then tying it to AI investments, you can start to see some stark differences from companies that adopt AI and companies that do not. And even from leaders who actually have been using AI pretty significantly to in that bell curve to companies that are on the left hand side. This has been picked up from a great book, and I'll talk about that in the next few slides. But this is huge, as you can start to see gross margin, earnings before taxes, net income. Some of these things are super important, and this is where the chasm of data reporting to data driven exists, right? So a lot of us have been in the journey of reporting on the data that's available, a little bit of a rear view mirror, but then how to turn some of that information, some of that data into insights there is a huge chasm, and that requires that thinking around how to prioritize data, how to bring talent and technologies in place, how to drive that cultural change, and the impact of that is incredible. And impact of that to become data driven is to bring data and AI together. And some of these financial numbers are a proof to showing why companies and why teams, why people like us who are really interested in delivering technology impact, business impact using technology, need to focus on AI as well. But AI is not possible without AI. And I'll talk about what that actually means, and what does the journey to become AI driven look like, right? And this is a journey. A Picked it up from a book called "Competing in the Age of AI," written by two Harvard professors, Karim Lakhani and Marco Inciti, and it's just an incredible book for people to read. A little bit modified in terms of how I think about some of these things, and many of you may be able to relate to this journey, right? So many of us are in this world of siloed data, where data is everywhere but not in a state that data can be converted into insights. So companies, as we mature, can deliver tremendous amount of impact, and why data and AI should be together, wherein AI is not even possible without AI is this maturity graph, right? If the data is siloed, the interoperability, the leverage that is required to derive insights from data is not possible, right? So when we start to think about it from a journey perspective, one good step is to go into a pilot mode where companies have started to build data lakes and lake houses and invested in technologies, both in the cloud as well as at the edge. And what that does is gives access to data where that interoperability is there, but then substantial investment is needed when it comes to a point where data is available for everybody to consume in a state that is trusted, it's accurate. And many of us have invested tremendous amount of energy, money, and people into data governance, data management, making sure that data is accessible, but yet in a way where it is secure and compliant. And that data hub space, moving from this pilot mode into a data hub space, is a huge undertaking. It's a substantial investment that everyone needs to make. But what it does allow is for us, for companies to bridge from data reporting world into data driven world. And what does it mean to make decisions data driven? And as you start to see this one, that is where applying AI on top of such data is where there is value. AI on its own is not going to be helpful. Data on its own is not going to be helpful. So combining AI and data, combining AI and IA, which is not just data, but also the underlying platforms and technologies and capabilities, is where there is tremendous amount of value. And then once data is available, once these algorithms are available, then we can get into an insights-driven org. In this book, the authors call it like an AI factory, which is where people can leverage the same set of data and put different lenses and start to derive value from it. And that is where the power of bringing, making data as a core focus again, and making sure that the investments in people and technology is made. And then the third big piece of it is to make that cultural change where AI becomes how decisions are made. And that drives a nice cycle of value, right? Wherein this is a place of rapid experimentation and learning and failing forward, or learning forward, wherein deploying these models, learning from it, deploying it to the customers as well as internally, learning from it, capturing more data, bringing that data back into your data platform so that it can support better insights, is how that value, or that cycle of value, continues to mature, and with maturity drives that tremendous amount of value as well. How am I doing on time? And this is my last slide, where I'm going to leave you with a framework that is picked up from a book called think AI Ladders. I think if you were to search for AI Ladder, this is one framework that I resonate with and has helped me think through, how to do this, wherein that modernization of a data platform and access to data, along with AI, drives that maturity, and that maturity drives impact as well. And it starts with simple things, right? Like, 4-step framework on the left-hand side, while modernizing your data platform in a multi-cloud hybrid environment. And the first step is obviously the collection, right? So how to make data simple and accessible is the first step to do. And we all know cloud is a big enabler, but doesn't have to be just cloud. But doing it in cloud gives us that ability to manage costs, manage speed, and accelerate. And that's the first important step. And collecting data is just not about collecting any kind of data, but collecting data that can spread across multiple realms. One is data that is available, the data that is available through enterprise platforms and stuff like that, the data that can be brought externally. And then there is an element of flavor across those two things, which is where the value lies, and a concept around invisible data. Once that, and we can get a little bit more detail if there are questions around what that invisible data means. Once that data is well collected and the access is made simple, and that data is minimally viably cataloged, then enables us to organize. The second big step is organize in a way that creates business-ready analytics foundation. And that is, how do we bring analytics capabilities from that a multi-cloud, or even just a regular cloud environment, and taking those analytics foundations from providing, how does the data flow, what kind of tools are available for people to get access to data, but also build analytics on top of it. And then the analyze piece is the big place where, you know, a little bit of taking the capabilities to the edge, to the action, to where the decisions need to be made is a very important step to make. So analyze is where having that access to that simple, accurate data, providing those capabilities and tools for not only doing reporting, but also analytics, and then building this analyze capability at the edge, at where the decisions need to be made, which is like, building and scaling that AI with trust and transparency is really, really important. And moving from organize to analyze is not an easy thing to do. And some of the things to think about is how can you provide a platform capabilities? How can you enable different teams to be self-sufficient? And we all talk about platform and product teams and hub and spoke models and those kind of things. That is really, really important. That needs to happen behind the scenes while you're building this, and then infuse is another big step, which is where that cycle of value is operationalized, right? So deploying those insights, learning from it, capturing more data, and then refining it and hyperscaling those features that go into AI, and infusing more and more insights into every decision, and taking that human input, those learnings as additional data, and bringing it back is how this framework can actually work, wherein you can bring data, which is data and platform, which is the IA side of it, and AI together to deliver that impact. And while you do all of these things, you're obviously building a platform, and modernizing those data platforms, and the talent that is required to make this a sustainable change. Those are at least a few thoughts that I had. Just again, a little bit of a recap. Data-driven organizations, retain, acquire, and are more profitable than companies that are not. And data-driven companies need to bridge that gap, that chasm that is available from moving from data reporting into data-driven, and that data-driven aspect of it has to be through AI and deriving insights from AI. And then AI is not possible without IA. And for IA and AI to come together, there is a maturity curve, and that maturity curve definitely, as you mature, provides more and more impact. And we talked about what it means from a financial standpoint, how companies that are leading in AI and companies that are laggards but still adopting AI are more profitable, and are delivering more for every asset that's available for the organization. And then, in the end, if an AI ladder framework for all of us to think about, consider as we start to derive value from data and deliver that impact. That is the spiel that I have for your consideration today. We can spend some time. I think I'm almost on time. I can switch over to Q&A. If you have any questions, more than happy to take it. Okay, there seems to be a lot of questions here. Question one, how do you measure the effectiveness of your data set? It is, there are three things in my mind that goes into effectiveness of a data set. One is trust, right? So, and then trust can be derived based on the transparency that's available, so that people can understand how the data has been curated and is made available for people to make decisions. The second one is, it is not just about curation, but also the insights coming out of it. And the third big piece of it is the impact that it delivers. Be it yes, there are these KPIs and things that we talk about, but what are what insights are we able to derive from the data that can influence those KPIs is how we can measure the effectiveness of the data sets that are in place. So 3 things. 1, transparency around curated data and building trust for people to make decisions. And that transparency has to exist all the way through. The second big piece of it is being able to measure how the data is enabling us to understand the underlying diagnostics aspect of it so that we can prescribe specific actions or predict a few things using AI. And the third big piece of it is to make sure that the actions that are being taken are indeed improving those KPIs. Question 2 is, have you found issues with the adoption of AI derived prescriptive insights? Yeah, it is not easy. It is definitely not easy, and hence that these 2 stages of analyze and infuse is very important. Those partnerships with the end users is so much more important. So it is not just about data and technology, but also that cultural engagement with the people who are taking those decisions at the edge. And then the key to that partnership to work is that lean, agile based thinking, where we have that ability to experiment, to deploy some of these insights, learn from it, build credibility, and then tune it further. And that's the only way it would happen. If it were to be only a technology led thing, it will not happen. So it needs to be both a functional and technology driven initiative. I'm sure many of you know about these things, but that's a question that I really like. Hope I answered the question there. If you need any other clarifications, please do keep posting questions, and I'll try to go through them as much as possible. Is there, and what are the limits of multiple data hubs if possible? It is going to be a given thing. Like multiple data hubs is going to be a reality whether we like it or not. The key thing is how can you create a marketplace for and abstract out the underlying hubs. When you move from that maturity curve, this particular thing, will we have one single hub or will there be multiple hubs? By the time you try to do this, you take 3 silos, bring it into a hub, there will be 2 more silos that will come up. So it's always going to be a catch-up mode. But the key to that is, can you create a data exchange layer that can abstract out the underlying hubs? And that is going to be really important. And there are a number of technologies in the market today that enable that to happen. If your hub, irrespective of how many clouds you have underneath, both on-prem as well as in the cloud, if your answer is only partial data, then it will never be successful. So you'll have to figure out that creation of that abstract layer, a data exchange layer that will make it easier for end users to not worry about the underlying hubs, and we as technologists can figure out how to harmonize those things underneath. What are the best practices to gather relevant data to feed AI to produce desired outcomes? Yeah, it is a great question. I would say, again, there are 3 aspects of it, right? So one is do not rely only on the internal data. That's the reason why data lakes and lake houses are so popular. I would say start to think about this invisible data, right? Work very closely with those end users. There are people who are making these decisions day in and day out. And there will always be things that they'll say, I wish I had this data available, or I wish we were able to connect these 2 data sets together. Those becomes that focus on that invisible data. And there is tremendous amount of value in that data than those other data sets that we are working on. Again, not to underestimate, not to lose focus on those core foundational pieces, but also focus on that invisible data as well. how flexible is the system to change AI framework once it's in place and hardened? Yeah, it is. It is. It is not easy. I mean, just to get a little bit geeky on that end, when you start to put data ops, model ops, and ML ops together, and if I were to switch to this, when you modernize your multi-cloud strategy, it's not possible at all without those data model and ML ops coming together. And what happens is you will eventually face a place where speed is going to be super important. Ability to have multiple models be generated and understand which ones are giving the best results, which ones have the lowest error rate. How do you eliminate bias, provide explainability? Those kind of things will force us to start to think about whether we should bring in tools that make it easier, and instead of go codeless and things like that. So it's not going to be easy. If most of us coming from a software engineering background, the refactoring is a big deal, and we've gotten to a point where there is no code, or even if there is code, we have multiple frameworks that can help us build things faster. AI is probably at the cusp of that change, and there are a number of technologies that are available that enable us to do it. But data ops, model ops, and ML ops, if you're not able to support it, this guaranteed that we will, as even just from improving the features and tuning and hyper tuning and those kind of things, is not going to happen without that ability to continuously change as well. It's a great question. Can you speak on data quality? Or I can speak on data quality for for a long time. It's always elusive. One of the things that worked, again, when we measure quality, there are multiple variables into it. At least the top three ones are: is it complete? Is it comprehensive? Is it timeliness? There are quite a few things in that one, and is it complete? Is it comprehensive? And is it usable kind of metrics? Has to be done with an outcome, with an insight in mind, and trying to do those things in isolation as a purist way is probably I tried both those things, and the one that worked really well is to actually start to figure out how to measure quality with respect to an outcome, and not as a purist approach. And yes, there are areas where you will have to do that one. For example, if you're doing an MDM or a master data management initiative for customers, or trying to figure out what your products are, those things could be multi-year initiatives. But can you slice it up? Can we slice it up in a way that we can continuously improve the quality of data based on the outcomes that we're going after? Then you will really be able to abstract out the underlying hubs and the complexity that is required. Or else what will end up happening is that because this modernized platform is not able to provide capabilities, there will be more and more silos that will get generated. So long story, quality more measured in terms of the effectiveness and use case driven. I think I just have maybe a couple more minutes. I'll take maybe yeah, I think I explained the invisible data. Invisible data are those data sets that that we don't have access to, or we do have access to but don't realize the importance of it. And when you start to think about how the decisions are being made, there even people who are making those decisions may not know that that data could be derived, and then you can use IoT and other things to improve it. So for example, people must be thinking, I wish I saw this production lot a few hours earlier, and I wish I had insights into real-time data that is flowing in from our suppliers. And some of that data we usually can't put our head around it. But imagine if you put IoT or blockchain initiative and you bring that data in, automatically it provides you better supply chain planning or inventory management, and you can save tremendous amount of money and time and organizational resources in it. I think I'm up on time, Michael. So final thoughts again. Hope you found it informational. Data-driven companies are more profitable, acquire better customers, provide better products and services to their customers. And for that to happen, companies need to bridge that data. Companies need to become more and more data-driven and enable humans to make those decisions driven by data. And for that cycle of value to be created, we need to bring data platforms, people, and AI together so that all of that will come together and give you that runway, give all of us that runway for maturity and just a framework for all of us to use to modernize those data platforms as technologists.
Thank you, Anurag, for an excellent keynote. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event.